Hi, I'm Monique of 7 Shots.
Ito yung rap.
Go, go! Yes, yes, go!
Rap ba yun?
Requirement ba na it should rhyme?
Yo, baboy, baboy!
How did you even discover rap?
Yo, thanks. You got something to say, man?
Bad influence kayo dahil ang daming murat.
Hip rapper.
Bam, bam, bam!
Break it down.
During the time that I was in elementary school, I would just listen to whatever's on the radio. It just so happened that during that time, hip hop is what was the thing. Everything from Salt and Pepper to like Mobb Deep that I could turn to on the radio, Tupac's and the Biggies. Lauryn Hill's my influence. X Factor, that was heavy. Stevie's Songs of Key of Life. He too was someone that handled every element of his music. When I arrived, it was Masterplan and SBC on the radio. Those were my early local influences. Being born and raised in Pasadena, I didn't really have hip-hop music in my community per se, but the ones that were on the radio at the time, it was anywhere from Salt and Pepper and MC Lyte. On mainstream television, I would have Mobb Deep. I didn't find it odd listening to what I was listening to, male-dominated, because I had so much male energy around me. I had a big brother, I had a lot of male cousins, a lot of homeboys more than homegirls. My parents definitely didn't understand my choice of music in the record store days. My brother and I would pick out albums and there would be like a little joke like, let's listen to what Monique picked out versus what Brian picked out. And then my parents would say like, which one is more acceptable or decent in their eyes. And of course, my music was never chosen. But I still had a soft side. Regardless of how inclined I was to hip hop, I would still listen to the Mariahs and the Whitneys. Being immersed in both worlds, like the divas and then the street guys, maybe that's also what drew me later on to my style and how I would make music. I suppose I started to write, it started as poetry and just little girl antics. At school, I would join choir. And then eventually when I discovered someone like a Lauryn Hill, that's when I really decided to try and emulate what she was doing. I would record a lot of demos over industry beats. Back in the day, you could buy single cassettes that had like the instrumental on there. Using the double tape decks, I would record some demos and try to freestyle. Some of it was written. Anyone that would listen, I would let them listen. I would have either the Walkman or a boombox. I would hit up a party and get on the mic, even if I wasn't asked. Like I was that girl. Born and raised there, came here the first time 95, left, came back in 2001. From there, I met through common friends, certain people in the industry here. I had two group mates, Precious and Giselle, in this defunct before it was ever anything group. We were being somewhat mentored by Joker. We were planning to put out an album. We had the beat and everything. We were starting to spit on it, but that didn't really work out. But because of Joker, that's how I met 7 Shots. I knew of 7 Shots. It seemed so large and everything. I really admired what they were doing. Mickey, probably after a couple years that I knew him, he let me know that the female member of their group was going to be leaving and going to the States and that they had an open audition for singers. So I did audition for 7 Shots. Management at the time, which was Rada of Kulai, like a whole panel that I had to perform in front of. And there were girls that were probably much better singers than I was. I remember hearing even an audition directly before me and I'm like, man, she's gonna get it. But for some reason, maybe because I had an idea about their type of music and probably even the homie thread, something in there, they chose me. When I joined Seven Shots, I was never intended to be a rapper for Seven Shots. It just so happened that I felt like I could. And when we had our first gig all together, I decided to go ahead and drop a verse. That's when Mickey, probably Harry, were like, oh, okay, maybe you can try and do both. So Kim, fortunately, was able to come back. That was when we decided I'll focus more on the rapping because Kim got it. Like nobody can sing like Kim. Recording the album was very overwhelming. It was my first time recording for one in a professional studio and layering and overdubbing, and at the same time I was very young and hadn't fully grown into my voice, I suppose. Like I sounded like a little girl, I think, compared to the rest of the group. It was something that I had to try and adjust to. So we kind of had to go through an interval actually between finishing the album and actually releasing it. Because for one, I got pregnant. I was performing probably until I was around 7 months. The group, not upon my request, we ended up having a little bit of a hiatus. And then probably 3 months or 2 months after I gave birth, that's when Love and Hate was released. Love and Hate, it wasn't a concept first. We just happened to write about those things. Not many people will know this song, but I think Baby It's Alright is one of my favorite tracks on the album. I think everyone was able to showcase their strength the most in that song. When we started performing again, it was a whirlwind. We would have gigs almost every night, or there was always something going on for us. Out-of-town gigs were always fun. Some of the most memorable bonding times for all of us. I have a soft spot for my girl Kim because I was so overwhelmed being the youngest member, and she was like everyone's mommy. Like she was the one that would fix all of the set music. She would coach me on the side if I was feeling insecure. We went through a lot together and we stuck with each other through a lot, whether it be change of management and maybe just having to grow up and having babies and getting into serious relationships, settling down. A lot of the guys had to get day jobs and stuff like that, so it was more of a challenge to come together for a gig until eventually we decided to just take a breather. I love Seven Shots. They are my family. I really appreciate everything that we went through. Nothing can take away from that experience that I had with them.
Let me get the best of you, best of you. Hold you close to me.
The back of my head, I always felt like I did want to make my own music. Not because of anything to do with Seven Shots, but just because I knew there was something else that I had to explore. I became a music student with the hopes of completing an album that I had done all by myself. Mind you, it wasn't just what I thought I had signed up for. Like, we had to score for orchestra and study all sorts of music history and Asian music, and it was a lot. I must have produced tons and tons of beats. A couple of my beats made it onto ILJ's solo albums, some beats that I gave away to some artists. I kind of prided myself for coming up with hooks for different artists. One of my standouts, of course, is with People's Future, a track called This Girl, That Lady. Guested on ILJ's solo albums as well.
you my first wifey. Hand me down.
Try and picture how you felt when you first heard the rhythmic spoken word when you heard that first verse.
I worked with artists from the women's business hip hop group.
My female heart that drives me to be more powerful than two goddess Aphrodite.
No need to bow down and no need to kiss our feet. Salty and sweet, we keep it gully, but we still elite. Kings ain't kings without, kings ain't kings without.
Inadvertently, I did one of my dream collabs. I was asked to do a track before with Master Plan.
Yo, this is what we do. The benefit for you. And we got my girl Monique.
Let's do it.
Check it out.
Let's do it.
And then next thing you know, I find out Bamboo's on it.
True Asiatic got the system bumping, got you feeling so high. True Asiatic got the system bumping, got your head in the sky.
So all of my solo efforts were under Lockdown Entertainment. I think I had completed at least 6 solid tracks.
The journey to success is a battle, but not a war. You're out there struggling without making the next man fall. Cause all of us make a difference regardless of my style or yours.
The only reason why I did not continue is just having so much on my plate. Too much of anything is bad, so I just lost my footing.
Too much of anything is bad news, but I never thought it was energy for hip hop that I'd lose. I never thought I'd feel that way. My hip hop in disarray.
The local scene, I believe it's thriving. I see a lot of like our homies from back in the day and new cats breaking ground with new audiences. Even my children's ages are in tune with some of the artists that we kind of came up with. I think I see growth because during our time, there was a big segregation between hip-hop genre and other genres, and I guess now it has evolved because people have come to realize that hip-hop is the one genre that can be spliced with any other genre and create a marriage and everything. So I think there's growth in the acceptance of the music. I know it's still not easy. There's still a lot more support that is needed.
Now that you have my voice, an instrument.
No, I don't want to retire forever. I think that now that my children are older, I'm getting there. The second wind is almost underway. I would love to work with a lot of local artists. I would love to be reintegrated and also bounce ideas back and forth between those that are active and doing their thing, whether or not it will be rapping. Maybe to start with, I do want to get my feet wet with singing first because it was something that I was supposed to explore back in the day. I will pressure myself enough to say you can expect at least a couple singles, if not an album. I definitely want to make new music.